Mosul battle, is leader Baghdadi urges no retreat. So-called Islamic State has released an audio tape purportedly from the group's leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, urging its supporters not to retreat as Iraqi forces advance on the city of Mosul. The recording has not been verified yet, but analysts believe it is genuine. Baghdadi's whereabouts are unknown. Some officials have said he may be inside Mosul alongside his fighters. It comes 2 weeks after the launch of a major offensive to retake the last major urban stronghold in Iraq. Some 50,000 members of the Iraqi security forces, Kurdish Peshmerga fighters, Sunni Arab tribesmen and Shia Muslim militiamen are involved in the operation, which is backed by US-led coalition airstrikes. They have already retaken dozens of villages and towns surrounding Mosul, and on Thursday pushed further into the city's eastern outskirts. Read more. In pictures, Iraqi forces enter Mosul. Battle on schedule, but not exactly to plan. The ugly, deadly urban warfare of Mosul. Battle for Mosul, the story so far. What did Baghdadi say? By BBC Monitoring. Baghdadi's rallying cry was timed to coincide with the entry of Iraqi forces into the outskirts of Mosul, at a critical moment for the group. Some of his comments appeared to betray concerns that military pressure on the group in Mosul might lead to a broader erosion of support. He called on his fighters to obey their leaders, warned Iraqi cities of the consequences of turning against us, and appealed to ISIS far-flung outposts, from Indonesia to West Africa, to stay loyal. Baghdadi rarely speaks publicly, but the last time he did so, in December 2015, he delivered a similar mix of defiant insistence on ultimate victory combined with implicit acknowledgement of setbacks on the ground. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, whose real name is Ibrahim al-Badri, was born in 1971 to a lower-middle-class Sunni Arab family in Samarra, Iraq. He had a passion for Quranic recitation and was nicknamed the Believer for chastising his relatives for failing to live up to his stringent standards. After pursuing his religious interests at university, Baghdadi gravitated towards violent ultra-conservatives in the Muslim Brotherhood. He later embraced Salafist jihadism and founded the insurgent group Jaish al-Sunnah wal-Jamaa after the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. After a year in prison, Baghdadi traveled to Damascus to take control of propaganda for al-Qaeda in Iraq, AQI. The group would later be dissolved, in place of Islamic State in Iraq, ISI, the former name for IS. Baghdadi quickly rose through the ranks mainly due to his ability to bridge the gaps between the foreigners who founded the group and local Iraqis who joined later. Who is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? The full story of IS. Will his fighters stay or go? By Ian Pendle, BBC News, Erbil. The military plan is to hold ground, clear houses and make it safe as the Iraqi army looks for pockets of his fighters. They know there are secret tunnels and rat runs between houses, and there are his fighters still in the outlying areas of the city. These fighters are willing to stand and die for their cause, and that makes for a very, very tough enemy. There will be his fighters trying to get out of the city westwards because that leads to Raqqa, in neighboring Syria, the last potential remaining is stronghold if and when Mosul falls. Commanders in Iraq's counter-terrorism forces say some of the IS leadership has already left Mosul. There are likely to be a lot of fellow travelers on the same route, people who are perhaps pleased to see IS fighters enter Mosul in the first place because of poor relations and treatment by some of the government forces who had been in control. There are also many foreign fighters who have nowhere else to go and who will stand and fight to the death. How is the advance going? On Thursday, the head of the Iraqi military's Nineveh Operations Command, Lieutenant General Abdullah Miryarilla, announced that units of the 9th Armored Division and the 3rd Brigade had entered the eastern Intizar district. An army source told the BBC that civilians had started to flee Intizar and the Sumar area, to the south, as the troops advanced and the fighting spread. Clashes were also reported in the suburb of Kukjalian on the edge of the adjoining Karama district, where elite counter-terrorism service forces are deployed. The source also said that security forces were approaching the Iraqi Police Academy complex in the Shilawat area northeast of Mosul, meaning they would soon be close to the Kahira and Tara districts. Meanwhile, the Shia-led Hashd al-Sha'bi, popular mobilization, paramilitary forces are focusing their efforts on retaking Tal Afar, a town about 50 kilometers, 30 miles, to the west, which lies on the main road between Mosul and Raqqa, the de facto is capital. Meanwhile, Amnesty International said people suspected of having ties to IS have been beaten, given electric shocks or dragged through the streets by cars as areas on the outskirts of Mosul were retaken by Sunni tribal militia fighters, according to eyewitnesses on the ground. There are also concerns for the more than 1 million civilians who remain inside Mosul, with the Norwegian Refugee Council warning that their lives are in grave danger because of the fighting. More than 21,700 civilians have fled since the offensive began on 17 October,